I faked my life so well even I wanted to believe it. Every lie wore better lighting. Every failure had a prettier caption. In a world built on applause, I mistook echoes for love. The sunsets weren't mine. The promises weren't mine. The man smiling in the pictures wasn't even breathing. Call it ambition, call it survival. I call it the only art I ever mastered, becoming the dream I could never live. I once bought a one-way ticket to Bali just to avoid a dinner with my wife. Sounds insane? Maybe. But that's the kind of man I used to be. My name is Thomas Westley. I'm 61 years old. And I was once the kind of guy who wore Italian loafers he couldn't afford, drank espresso for the aesthetics, and posted every fake sunrise like I was reborn with it. People called me a businessman. In reality, I was more like a storyteller with a strong Wi-Fi signal and a fragile ego. It all started when I realized one thing. People don't care what you do. They care what you look like you're doing. So I crafted my life into a narrative of curated wanderlust and pseudo-success. My Instagram was a highlight reel of resort pools I snuck into, cocktails I posed with but never paid for, and views that belonged to other people's balconies. My followers saw a man who had it all: freedom, flair, and financial comfort. The truth? I was living on Layla's retirement plan and lies. Layla, my wife, was 57, smarter than me, better than me, and for reasons I never understood, still believed in me. But belief can feel like pressure too. She controlled the money, the mortgage, the calendar. She would say things like, "We need to fix your LinkedIn," with the same tone people use for, "We need to clean out the garage." When I was home, I wasn't a partner. I was a pending project she kept postponing. She thought I was flying to seminars, business meetups, investment forums. I was flying to distractions, indulgences, and sometimes straight into the arms of strangers. But here's the part no one saw. The performance wasn't just for the world, it was for me. Because if I wasn't Thomas the jet-set entrepreneur, then I was just Thomas the failure, the man who couldn't close a deal, couldn't build a business, couldn't even fix the damn microwave without calling Layla. So I invented a version of myself I could admire, even if it meant lying every time I posted. I smiled into the camera not because I was happy, but because I couldn't face the mirror without the mask. I wasn't looking for love. I was looking for a mirror that would reflect me as something more than what I had become. That mirror showed up in the form of dating apps with multilingual settings. I wasn't swiping for a soulmate. I was swiping for validation, for those few moments where someone, usually a woman half a world away, would say, "You seem interesting," and I'd lie just enough to keep their interest alive. And then came Bali. A trip that started like all the others: cheap airfare, luxury lies, and captions that screamed, "Living the dream." But as the plane descended over endless green canopies and incense-smoked villages, something inside me shifted. It was in the air, the kind of heavy, fragrant warmth that smelled like burnt sandalwood and something older than memory. I didn't know it then, but I was flying not just to an island, but into a version of myself I had never met. One I would later beg to forget. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have known, was that I was just days away from meeting the only woman who would ever believe in the worst version of me. And that belief would change everything. She had the kind of silence that made you talk too much. That's what I remember first. Not her smile, not her shop tucked between two stone shrines in Ubud, but that quiet. The way she looked at me like I was unfinished, like she was trying to read the parts of me I hadn't written yet. And I, being the compulsive narrator I was, filled the silence with stories I barely believed myself. Her name was May. She was 40, maybe younger, maybe older. It didn't matter. Time didn't sit on her like it sat on me. She ran a tiny store that sold carved wood, hand-dyed cloth, incense that made my eyes sting and my lies smoother. She moved like someone who had no rush, no chase. I moved like someone always late to a version of himself he could never quite become. I told her I was in Bali for a creative retreat, that I was consulting on eco-startups, that I loved slow mornings, hand-poured coffee, and meaningful conversations. I said it all with such confidence that I almost forgot I was staying in a room above a backpacker bar, swatting mosquitoes and praying my credit card would go through. "And May?" She nodded. She smiled. She listened like she hadn't been lied to 1,000 times before. What I didn't expect was the ritual. Every morning before she opened her shop, May would light a stick of incense, not with a lighter, but with an old matchbook she kept in a ceramic lotus-shaped holder. She'd strike one match gently and say nothing. No mantra, no ceremony, just fire and silence. Somehow that felt like prayer. And that silence? It made me confess without asking. But it wasn't just her calm that got me. It was the fact that she didn't try to impress me. No makeup, no filters, no effort to look like something other than what she was. I didn't know what to do with that kind of real. So I did what I always did. I turned it into a story. I projected onto her everything I was afraid to be. Grounded, sincere, unafraid of being unnoticed. She laughed softly, rarely. And when she did, I felt like I had written the line myself. Her English was careful but curious. Mine was performative. I told her I admired simplicity, but I'd never lived it. I told her I was tired of the noise, but I was the one making it. She told me her mother taught her to read people by their breathing, not their words. That stuck with me. Because every time I exhaled next to her, I felt like I was confessing something. I wasn't in love, I was in need. May was not a woman. I made her a refuge. A temple where my broken image could rest without being judged. I never asked what she wanted. I never even thought to. All I knew was that for the first time in years, I felt seen. Not celebrated, not followed, just seen. But there was a part of me, quiet, stubborn, that knew this couldn't last. That knew someone like May, who lit matches for clarity and spoke in half smiles, could see right through the dust cloud I was calling a soul. I always felt like I was being quietly evaluated, like she already knew I wouldn't stay. And that's the cruelest part. Because what I gave her in return was a version of me that didn't exist. The good thing about time zones is they give you the perfect excuse to live two lives. I returned home 3 days after my visa expired, and 3 hours before Layla got off work. I remember unlocking the door to our condo, the silence colder than when I'd left. The kitchen light hummed. My travel bag sat by the couch like I'd gone somewhere noble. I hadn't, but I was getting better at staging the scene. She asked how the seminar went. I said it was transformative. I even showed her photos, filtered, framed, and fully fake. Layla didn't question them. Not really. After 30 years of marriage, people don't listen to words. They listen to patterns. And I'd mastered the rhythm of just enough truth to blur the lie. But May was still in my phone, and in my head, and in some foolish, deluded part of me, in my heart. I started waking up early, not for morning runs or meditation, but for video calls wrapped in kitchen towels so Layla wouldn't hear my voice bouncing off the tiles. I told May I missed her, that I was planning my return, that my life here was temporary. She believed me because I sounded like someone who believed himself. The time zone worked in my favor. Bali nights were America's mornings. I'd call May while Layla showered, send voice notes from the car, post recycled photos from my Bali trip with captions like, "Craving this kind of peace again." Comments rolled in. Likes. Fire emojis. A friend even messaged, "You look so happy these days." I was, but not in the way they thought. One morning, May sent me a small package. Inside was a bracelet, hand-woven, simple, uneven in the most human way. With it was a note. "You once said you liked how slow things moved here. This is a slow gift. It took 3 mornings to finish." I held that bracelet like it had weight far beyond its threads, and for a split second I felt something I hadn't in years. Shame, but I shook it off. May, in her gentle way, never pushed. She asked about my work, my writing, my sleep. She sent me photos of new carvings at her shop, of rain sliding down banana leaves, of incense coiling up like breath. I saved them all. Sometimes I'd stare at one image for minutes. Not because I was moved, because I was calculating how long I could keep this up. I was juggling a marriage, a fantasy, and a mask. But here's the thing about juggling. You think you're in control, right up until the first ball drops. And for a while, it didn't. I was smooth, careful, strategic. I even changed May's name in my phone to Mentor EcoConf Call. That alone bought me 4 months of clean lies and careless smiles. But every now and then, in the middle of a call with May, I'd see her pause. Just a flicker, a delay in her nod, a longer breath. Like she was about to ask the one question that would wreck it all. She never did, because she trusted me. And that's what made me dangerous. A lie doesn't feel like a lie if everyone claps at the end. I arrived in Bali 6 months after I'd left. May met me at the airport. She didn't run, didn't cry, just smiled and said, "You look thinner." I told her I'd been working a lot. I didn't tell her it was mostly working on being two different people. It was supposed to be a short trip, 10 days, a quiet escape. But on the third evening, somewhere between grilled corn on the beach and the kind of silence that only happens when two people have nothing to prove, I asked her to marry me. No ring, no plan, just words that sounded good in the air. And somehow they worked. She laughed at first, thought I was joking, but when I said it again, "Let's do it, let's have our own wedding," her face changed. Not into shock, not even joy. Something deeper, like a wound healing without permission. The ceremony was small. We found a friend of hers who used to be a yoga instructor, now ordained online. There were flowers, candles, and a photographer I paid in cash to not ask too many questions. May wore a white cotton dress that looked like it belonged to the sky. I wore linen, no tie, and the confidence of a man who thought intention could excuse everything. We didn't sign anything. There was no legal paper, no mention of it online. Just filtered photos, vague captions. Grateful for new beginnings. My followers swooned. "You deserve this love." Finally, someone who sees the real you. I laughed at that one. During the vows, May said, "I don't need promises, just presents." I nearly broke character. Not because I felt guilty, because I wanted to believe that was enough. That standing there with ocean wind and candlelight and a woman who made my name sound like forgiveness could overwrite everything I hadn't told her. We spent that week like people who'd earned it. Sunrises, street food, her laughter filling rooms I didn't deserve to be in. But each night when she fell asleep beside me, I stared at the ceiling, counting the days, not because I wanted to leave, because I knew I would. And when the last morning came, when my bag was packed and the cab waited outside, she hugged me and whispered, "Come back soon, husband." I kissed her forehead and lied again. I thought I was playing both sides. Turns out I was standing in the middle, waiting to get hit by both. I returned home from Bali with a tan, a flash drive full of wedding photos, and the kind of delusion only men like me can afford. Layla met me at the airport. She didn't smile, didn't ask how the conference was, just handed me the keys and said, "Dinner's in the fridge." It was the kind of quiet that wasn't calm. It was curated, like the silence before a presentation where you're the only one who doesn't know you're the subject. At first I thought I'd gotten away with it. Again. I unpacked, uploaded some wedding photos to a locked album, labeled it "Client Content, Do Not Delete." I even lit one of the incense sticks May had gifted me. The smell filled the kitchen like a ghost of something I didn't deserve. 2 days later, Layla said she wanted to talk. We sat across from each other in the living room, the same room where I used to fake Zoom calls. She pulled out her laptop, clicked a folder. The first image, me and May on the beach. The second, a screenshot of my post tagged Uluwatu Bliss. The third, a private message from someone named @Bali Travel Snaps that read, "Are you doing weddings now, Mr. Westley? Beautiful couple." Layla didn't yell, didn't cry. She just pressed play on a voice recording. It was me. Telling May, "I'll come back soon, wife." I don't know how she got it. Maybe from my phone, maybe from the cloud, maybe Karma just has admin access now. "I've filed," she said. "For what?" I asked, because I was still trying to act. "For clarity," she replied. Then paused, just long enough to let the air freeze, and said, "You didn't just cheat on me, Thomas. You auditioned for a new life and flopped the callback." She didn't throw anything. She didn't threaten. She didn't even ask why, because she already knew. She'd known for months, maybe years. She was just waiting for me to bury myself in my own drama. And I had. Over the next few weeks, everything unraveled. The condo, gone. The car, repossessed. Bank accounts frozen. Mutual friends, muted. I moved into a tiny Airbnb with a mattress on the floor and Wi-Fi that couldn't even stream my own lies. May kept texting. I didn't answer. What could I say? Hey, turns out I was married and now I'm nothing? I didn't even have the guts to block her. I just vanished. Ghosted her. Which, if you think about it, is probably the most honest thing I'd done in years. If you're still here, quietly listening, thank you. Feel free to like and subscribe if you wish. One night, I opened my phone out of habit, scrolled through old photos. I stopped at one, May standing by her shop, light falling across her face, her hand reaching for the incense holder. I stared at it for a long time. The way you look at a door you know you'll never walk through again. Some people hit rock bottom. I hit the floor, then tried to sell it on Facebook Marketplace. I was selling the couch when May walked in, not a metaphor. I was literally dragging a dusty beige love seat across the floor of a one-bedroom rental when the door opened, and there she was, holding a suitcase, wearing the same calm I once mistook for naivety. She didn't speak, she didn't move. I froze like a thief caught stealing his own identity. The silence between us was volcanic, heavy, ancient. I said the first stupid thing that came to mind. "How did you find me?" She blinked. "You tagged the lamp," she said, nodding toward an old floor lamp leaning against the wall, its ad still live online. "Your name was in the post." Of course. Of course I'd forget to change the seller profile. She looked around the apartment. Mattress on the floor, open suitcase, plates stacked like a sad modern art exhibit. A room with no soul, no story, just leftovers from a man who had lied himself out of everything. She walked slowly toward the incense holder. "Yes, I brought it with me." She touched it, then looked back at me. "I thought maybe something happened to you," she said. "You disappeared." "I did," I said, "from everything." There was a pause. A long one, the kind you can't outrun. She stepped closer. Her eyes didn't water. Her voice didn't shake. "You married me," she said, like it was a vacation, and then left like it was checkout. I tried to speak. I didn't. And then she slapped me. Not out of rage, not for drama. It was deliberate, like a punctuation mark. She stepped back, adjusted her sleeve, and whispered, "I didn't come to get closure. I came to see if you were real." I nodded, somehow more ashamed that she found me like this than if she'd caught me mid-lie. She turned, walked toward the door, paused, looked at me one last time. "You said you wanted to be seen. Well, this is how you look." Then she left. No tears, no scenes, just me, the floor lamp, and a couch no one wanted. I didn't confess because I regretted it. I confessed because silence was getting more likes than me. I wrote it in one sitting, 10,000 words, no edits. Just me, a half-drunk bottle of rice wine, and a browser tab titled Top Performing Blog Templates. It started as a draft called Things I Lost When I Lied. But I changed it, made it more clickable. The final title, How I Became the Man I Told Her I Was. It wasn't apology, it was architecture. I wasn't sorry, I was building something people would share, screenshot, quote in Instagram captions. And they did. I posted it at midnight, thinking no one would read it. By morning, it had 11,000 shares. By lunch, podcasts were emailing me. By sundown, I had 3 publishers offering to buy the story. They called me brave, honest, vulnerable. They didn't know I still had May's bracelet in my drawer. They didn't know I rehearsed the pain before I wrote it. I became a voice, the voice of middle-aged masculinity in crisis. A headline on BuzzFeed called me the anti-influencer who broke himself to heal others. I laughed so hard I almost threw up on my rented futon. I told people about my lies like they were plot points. I framed my collapse as a spiritual undoing. I made it digestible, empathetic, shareable. And it worked. People sent me DMs. I cried reading this. Men wrote, "Bro, you put into words what I was too ashamed to say." Even therapists asked if they could quote me in their TED Talks. But not everyone bought it. Some called me manipulative, a grifter, a narcissist with good grammar. One article headline read, "Weaponized shame, when confession becomes content." They weren't wrong. I didn't lie in the blog. I just curated which truths I made viral. And that's all it took. I became famous for being a fraud who admitted it well. But May never reached out. Not once. Not even a view on the blog. And that stung. Not because I missed her, but because for the first time in years, my voice wasn't enough to pull someone back. It's amazing how light your baggage feels when you leave all your guilt at home. I arrived in Bali a second time, not as a man running from consequences, but as a man who had monetized them. The airport smelled the same. Roasted peanuts, humid air, and a hint of clove cigarettes. But I walked differently now. Shoulders higher, wallet heavier, 1,000 comments under my last blog post calling me raw, healing, the brave messiah of midlife truth. I almost believed them. I told myself this trip was about closure, maybe even forgiveness. But truthfully, I wanted a scene. I pictured it like a movie. I'd walk into her shop, she'd look up, gasp, whisper my name. I'd hand her the printed blog. She'd cry, smile, say she always knew I had it in me. Fade to black. What happened was very different. I found the shop. Still there. Still small. Still smelled like sandalwood and lemongrass. But May wasn't at the front. A younger woman stood behind the counter. I asked for May. She looked me up and down. "You're Thomas?" "Yes." "She said you might come," the girl replied, then handed me a sealed envelope. It was light. A single page. Handwritten. "Thomas, I saw what you did. The world may applaud you, but applause fades. I'm not angry. I just no longer accept reruns in my life. If you need a stage, I hope you find one where the script doesn't hurt people to make it sound real. I'm still here, just not for you." I stood outside the shop for a long time. Tourists walked by. Some recognized me. One asked for a selfie. I smiled, the practiced kind, the kind that hides the echo of something just lost again. Back in my hotel room, I reread the note. No anger, no bitterness, just absence. It felt heavier than any insult I'd ever received. No rejection, just removal. And that's when I realized something. Being hated means you mattered once. Being forgotten means you didn't. He died on camera. And for once, he wasn't performing. Thomas Westley, age 64, collapsed mid-sentence during a live stream titled "Writing Through the Wreckage: How Pain Becomes Power." He was speaking about regret, or maybe resilience. It was hard to tell. His tone, like always, was perfectly paced, rehearsed just enough to sound unrehearsed. One second, he was gesturing at a highlighted manuscript. The next, he tilted forward, eyes open, mouth mid-breath. The camera kept rolling. For 23 minutes, the chat room bloomed with reactions. "Whoa, this is so raw." "Method acting? Is this part of the talk?" By the time someone called paramedics, the room had gone still. The replay was viewed over 8 million times. They called it performance art of the century. "Healing, honest, haunting," said one podcast. "A masterpiece in death," another. The funeral was streamed too, of course. Soft lighting, minimalist flowers, piano versions of pop songs from his youth. His photo sat on an easel, mid-laugh, arms outstretched, as if still reaching for the applause. May arrived first, alone, silent, seated in the last row. She held a small velvet pouch in her lap and said nothing. Layla came late. She walked straight to the podium. "I was married to Thomas for 30 years, she said, steady. "And for those years, he taught me something profound, that the most dangerous lies are the ones we dress up in vulnerability." A few people shifted in their seats. "He didn't change," she added. "He just changed the caption." Polite silence. One clap, then more. May stepped forward next. She looked small against the microphone, but her voice carried. "I didn't come to forgive him," she said. "I came to confirm he existed." She pulled something from her pouch, a handmade bracelet frayed at the edges. "I made this for him. He said he wore it when he needed to feel grounded. I never saw it again." She placed it on the edge of the coffin. "I hope he finds peace, and if not peace, at least quiet." She walked out, never looked back. That night, the funeral clip trended on social media. Quotes pulled from their eulogies went viral. Reaction videos flooded YouTube. TikTok edits paired his collapse with melancholic synth music. Someone even launched a podcast series called Dead Honest. His book sales tripled. His follower count passed 1.5 million posthumously. People debated in the comments, was he a fraud or a fallen prophet? Was it redemption or just retention? Nobody agreed, but they all kept watching. Because Thomas Westley died doing what he loved most, talking about himself. And for the first time in his life, he wasn't lying. Thank you all for watching this video. Please comment and let me know what you think about this story. Please like and subscribe to watch more great content on my channel.